Hello everyone, welcome. We're pretty mellow here this morning. We've had our matcha morning, had our matcha tea this morning. You can tell we've got all the accoutrements here, playing around with these Japanese instruments, tea instruments, teaware, with the whisks and the matcha and all that's involved in the many tea bowls. So we've had a lot of fun. We're going to continue to explore a tray ceremony where we actually prepare tea on a tray, not with the usual kimonos and stuff. So welcome to join us on Monday mornings at 11. I know for many of you it's an inconvenient time, but you're very, very welcome to join us if you would like to. It would be wonderful to have you as we share tea together. We share actually the sacredness of tea, and we'll get more into that as we get past the tea making and more into just really appreciating the moment, which is what we're here together here for today. So really want you to have a good time. Our focus today will be, last time we were together, I read a quote to you, and it was from Thomas Merton. And it said, there are times when in order to keep ourselves in existence at all, we simply have to sit back for a while and do nothing. And for a person who has let themselves be drawn completely out of themselves by their activity, nothing is more difficult than to sit still and rest, doing nothing at all. The very act of resting is the hardest and most courageous act they can perform. So, it takes courage to do nothing. That's the world we're living in now. It used to be, it took courage to do something. Now it takes courage to do nothing. We're all so busy. And this Thomas Merton quote, he was a Trappist monk, a very, very well-known speaker and author back in the day. He probably died 20 or 30 years ago, not too far away. But even then, for a person who has let themselves be drawn completely out of themselves by their activity, drawn out of themselves by their activity. And I think nothing describes our very iPhone or device, whether it's an iPhone or an Android or whatever, our smartphone device-centric world where we're constantly being drawn outside of ourselves into checking all the things that we check. So this time together is an antidote to that, where you can just sit back, relax, and do nothing, and just enjoy this moment. Appreciate yourself for all your busyness, for all your efforts in a world that clearly is a little bit different than perhaps we expected or would have liked. Certainly in my case, I kind of had expected things to be a little different. And so as I've adjusted to the disappointment and moved more into the spiritual principles of acceptance, the spiritual law of acceptance and cooperation, and just not negating the joy and profundity of this moment, just to be drawn outside of myself by some projection about the future. And so that's why we're coming together for these meditations, that we bring us back into a perspective of life, which we could term spiritual. And by that we mean that we just are taking life as it is and looking at it from a higher perspective, from a complete perspective, knowing that certain actions may not be negative, even though they look negative. They may be balancing out imbalances. We accept that everybody is here to learn from their experience, including ourselves, and that we all make mistakes, and that everybody's doing the very best they can with what they have. And so once we kind of can really bring ourselves into that kind of energetic, then things begin to settle down a little bit. Let's hear from 2 excerpts from John Roger as we dive into rest.
The divine presence is exactly that thing that is present everywhere. And I could take you to a radical point of view and tell you that there really is no soul. There really is only this presence that is omnipotent, omnipresent at all times. But we talk about the soul as that individualized energy to give you a sense of well-being so that you can wave your dilemma away as you rise up in consciousness to find out you are what you have always been, and you are the one you've been looking for. If you're not pleasing yourself by being who you are, I got some sad news for you. That's tough, because that's all there is. If you haven't found that place yet inside of you that is full and brilliant, that's tough, because that's all there is. But when you get there, that's enough, because that's all there is. That's all there is for everybody on all the levels of consciousness. The bright, brilliant radiance of our beingness.
The bright, brilliant radiance of our beingness. I always have a need to repeat John Rogers' words. The bright, brilliant radiance of our beingness. That's who we are. So let's relax into that. There's a quote from Kaye, great mystic, I think about it, 15th century or so, who said, "Go deeper, past thoughts into silence, past silence into stillness, past stillness into the heart. Let love consume all that is left of you." I think that could be a meditation in itself, really. We could just spend the whole time together. Go deeper, past thoughts into silence, past silence into stillness, past stillness into the heart. Let love consume all that is left of you. Kabir was Indian, but there were great Persian Sufi poets, as we know, like Rumi, and there was one called Hafiz. And for our session today, Hafiz really guides us. He said, just sit there right now. Don't do a thing. Just rest. For your separation from God is the hardest work in this world. This quote has always, or poem has always had an impact on me, because it's such an important reminder that if we're this bright, brilliant, radiant being, then surely the easiest thing in the world would be just to relax and just be that. That's who we are. But we don't allow that. We separate, we identify with the world. And then we attempt to get back to who we are, and we find that hard, when really the hardest work is what we've been doing all along, which was separating ourselves from our divine source. We can reconnect very easily. We do it each session. We just ask for the highest and purest light from the highest and purest source to surround and fill each one of us and the space we're in for the highest good. And we ask for this light to cleanse and purify the space around us, dissolving any negativity or upset or imbalance or pollution, taking it back into the nothingness from which it came through grace for our highest good. And we ask for that light to come into our being and cleanse and purify all of our levels of any upset or disturbance or negativity. And again, ask that it be dispersed, dissolved, released, transmuted, and taken back into the nothingness from which it came through grace for our highest good. Perhaps you feel a shift there, shift in the room, where you can more easily now drop into yourself. Drop into that bright, brilliant radiance and rest there. John Roger tells us that if God is going to be called forth, you sit and listen. If you get nothing and it's still, you must realize that underneath the stillness is the Creator, who is holding the stillness. So in everything you do, whether failure or success, you must realize that God is containing and holding all of that. We're going to do something called intentional rest. This was something that was developed by a gentleman called Dan Howard. I think he wrote a book about it. Intentional resting. It is Dan Howard. I don't know what the title of the book is called. But it fits in with what we're doing here, this idea, this Thomas Merton quote that we started with. Nothing is more difficult than to sit still and rest, doing nothing at all, for someone who has habitually let themselves be drawn out of themselves by their distractions, by their activity. And here we're saying, and hopefully you're just following along with my words. I mean, my words aren't important. What's important is that you begin to bring yourself back into yourself. Come back into that bright, brilliant radiance, that divine presence. That's why I play those quotes over and over as a reminder that that's what's important. So let's just go through some intentional resting here. We can just say, I rest for what comes up for me in the moment. This is what Dan's technique is a little different here. He says, I rest for that. I rest for what comes up for me in the moment. Moment to moment. Literally. So just go along with this. Don't try and work anything out. Just get the idea of your resting. And you're resting for these aspects that emerge out of you. For example, as I'm present with myself in the moment, I might notice that I'm feeling fear or sadness or anger. I allow myself to feel the specific emotion or feeling fully. being as present as possible, I then rest for that particular feeling by saying to myself, I'm resting for fear now. Whatever it is, whatever emerges in your consciousness. And we allow the softening or ripple of the intentional rest to move through our awareness fully. So let's say we're dealing with sadness. I'm resting with sadness now. And you truly rest. I mean, what is it to really rest? Just think of a time where you rested. Really rested. Really let go. Really put down all your guards, all your defenses, all the weight of the world, all the responsibilities, all the obligations, all the commitments. Put it down like taking off an armor. And you rest. I'm resting for sadness now. And put your own words in there. I'm resting for now. We add the now because it's not anything in the future. It's happening right now. It's what's present for you right now. I'm resting for now. And allow the softening or ripple of the intentional rest to move through your awareness fully. This is not a hurried experience. If we notice we're feeling a particular body sensation, such as soreness or fatigue, we rest for areas of our body that hurt or feel tired and sore. For example, we could say to ourselves, I'm resting for my feet now. I'm resting for my back now. Now here's the thing, although I'm giving you examples, we just don't go through a list. It's suggested that we only rest for one feeling or emotion or area at a time so that we can be fully present to the depth and the breadth of the experience. We're multidimensional beings, so as we can imagine, there are many emotions and body sensations that we could be feeling. I've got an ache here and here and here, and it's just like, no, just be with one. We're in no hurry here. Whatever one emerges, just find it. I'm resting for my back now. And then feel the soft or the ripple of the intentional rest moving through your awareness. As you fully embrace this resting, hopefully you can feel this. If you haven't taken off the armor, you can feel the armor melting around you, the energetic incrustations just falling away, as if someone has taken a weight off of you. Just continues. And again, we have this light of the Holy Spirit surrounding and filling us. And as this weight comes off of us, it dissolves into this light for our highest good. Again, this does take courage, because we have to be willing to be with what perhaps we've been ignoring. Again, technique could be simpler. I'm resting for, could be an emotion like sadness or an ache, like my feet or my shoulders. Could be I'm resting for the tension in my shoulders now. We're resting for that. So just allow whatever comes forward just to be with it. Not a big list, but just one thing. And you'll know when you're complete with it, when there's no energy with it, when you fully allow the softening and ripple of the intentional rest to move through your awareness fully. It'll just feel clear. And you'll be in a deeper state of rest. And again, we can just remind ourselves of Hafiz saying, just sit there right now. Don't do a thing. Just rest. For your separation from God is the hardest work in this world. I'll let you rest in silence for the next few minutes. Important thing is that you rest for whatever has emerged for you. Your sadness, your upset, any pain, any soreness. I'm resting for whatever it is now. So hopefully the armor, the weight you've been carrying is continuing to melt, and you find yourself more fully present in who you are. A lot of times it's our resistance that gets us tired, not necessarily our activity, but our resistance to it. And so we can rest for our resistance. I'm resting for my resistance now. But besides resting for feelings, emotions, and body sensations, we can also rest into opportunities. We can rest into possibilities. And we can rest for our heart. If we're experiencing a big transition in our life, then we can use rest to assist us through the bumps and turns along this new pathway, so that it becomes easeful, filled with grace. And one of our greatest gifts. Again, we return to Hafiz. Just sit there right now. Don't do a thing. Just rest. For your separation from God is the hardest work in this world. So when Hafiz tells us to just rest, when Thomas Merton tells us that the very act of resting is the hardest and most courageous act we can perform, we know now how we can easily enter into a state of rest. Just choose whatever is going on for you. And I'm resting for that part of me now. The great teacher Nisargadatta Maharaj tells us that these moments of inner quiet will burn out all obstacles without fail. Don't doubt its efficacy. Try it. And the meditation teacher Jack Cornfield tells us, let go of the battle. Breathe quietly and let it be. Let your body relax and your heart soften. Open to whatever you experience without fighting. And hopefully you feel a little bit more rested. For those of you who can stay on for 10 or 15 minutes for the community sharing, I'd love to hear your experience of just resting for any particular part of your consciousness or body. As we come to close this session, though, you can just gently wiggle your fingers and toes. Take in a slightly deeper breath. And as you open your eyes, whenever you're ready, there's absolutely no rush here. Just see if there's a place of rest that you can maintain during the day. The great meditation teacher Tilopa, about 1,000 years ago or so, said, let go of what has passed. Let go of what may come. Let go of what is happening now. Don't try to figure anything out. Don't try to make anything happen. Relax right now and rest. Tilopa, one of the greatest meditation teachers of all time, telling us to relax right now and rest. I'm still absorbing that Tilopa quote. T-I-L-O-P-A. Tilopa. Let go of what has passed. Let go of what may come. Let go of what is happening now. Don't try to figure anything out. Don't try to make anything happen. Relax right now and rest. So you can come slowly back. For those of you who need to leave us, it's approaching the top of the hour. And for those of you who can stay on, please stick around, and would love to hear your sharing and what you have experienced from this session together. Well, lovely to see you all. Thank you so much for joining. Such a pleasure to be with you all. And thank you to Stella and to Paul and to Chris and to Maria Jose Marignon. And we'll see you all perhaps on Thursday, perhaps at the Harmonic Self this weekend, perhaps next Monday. But the idea is just to keep going and keep recentering as we deal with the ups and downs of life. And for those of you who don't know, we were all rather shocked this weekend, or many of us, when a dear friend of ours, Mark Holmes, we got the news that he had passed away. And it was very sudden for many of us, and that's what made it so shocking. He was a healer, a great man. Did many classes that I did with him, and beautiful presence and a big loss for all of us. And again, a reminder that the life is precious. The time we have here on this planet is short, and can we make the most of it? And I think one of the things that we really need to do is just find this place of rest, this place of stillness, this place of silence, place of spaciousness, and that's what these Monday meditations, the spiritual sky, are all about. So be well, everyone. God bless Mark Holmes' soul and his next journey. And meanwhile, we'll continue our journey here on earth. And we'll do it together, holding hands and encouraging each other and supporting each other as we just rest in the presence of the beloved. God bless you all. We'll see you around. Take care.